Hello, my name is Donna Laquadera-Carr, and I want to thank you for joining us for our webinar today on the drive toward healthier buildings. We appreciate your interest in this very, very important topic, and I look forward to sharing our research with you today. Before I dive in, though, I do have a couple of quick housekeeping notes that I wanted to make sure everyone was aware of. As the presentation goes along, you can ask a question at any time. To submit a question, please type your question into the Ask a Question box on the left-hand side of your screen and hit the Submit button. On the other hand, if you experience any technical difficulties, please click on the small question mark button on the top right of your screen, and this will lead you to our FAQ section and system check page. If you continue to have problems, we will also be monitoring the questions for any technical issues, but we recommend that you start with the question mark button first. All right, so that said, again, my name is Donna Laquadera-Carr. I'm the Industry Insights Research Director here at Dodge Data and Analytics. I have been with Dodge for over 25 years and have been involved in construction news data and analysis. And I've spent the last 7 years in my current role as a managing editor of the Smart Market Report series, and it is going to be on the Smart Market Reports that I'll be focusing today. But I did want to give you just a quick overview of Dodge Data and Analytics. Hopefully most of you are familiar with our Dodge Global Network, the leading source of construction information in the United States. Through Dodge Reports or the various other methods you can use to access that data. We also have suites.com, and the division that I'm most closely involved in is Dodge Data and Analytics section, the market research and intelligence. That is where the Smart Market Reports reside, but in addition to the Smart Market Reports, we do have off-the-shelf and custom analytics that we do where we can draw upon the strength of over 25 years of Dodge data to do interesting forecasts both regionally and nationally. So, like I said, I am part of the Smart Market I help produce the Smart Market Reports. I'm the managing editor of them. You can access any of our Smart Market Reports at analyticsstore.construction.com. The Smart Market Report series is our investigation into transformational trends in the construction industry. And since we've started them in 2006, they've largely fallen into 3 major categories. Sustainability, which of course the health report that I'll be talking about today definitely falls under. Technology and innovation. We've done a lot with building information modeling, and we do think that technology is helping to support transformations, especially in the practices and processes. And we recently issued a safety report. Our Managing Uncertainty report is a landmark report in the industry. Again, you can access any of these at analyticsstore.construction.com. But I will be focusing today largely on the new report that we just issued last week on the drive toward healthier buildings. Now, the report cover you're seeing in front of you is not that one yet. I wanted to give you a little history. In 2014, we started to realize that this trend towards healthier buildings was becoming an important part of sustainability and really starting to establish itself as its separate movement. So we did an initial research project that really served as a benchmark for where the industry stood at that time. We have now updated that, taken it a step further, and looked at really tactical intelligence in our Drive Toward Healthier Buildings 2016. And again, this is the report on which the rest of the presentation will focus. But I am going to first introduce it with some data from our corporate sustainability report that we partnered on with Siemens. And I'm going to end with the one area that the Drive Toward Healthier Buildings 2016 does not go into, which is the residential market, the single-family home market. And we did publish a report earlier this year that dealt with green and healthier homes, and I have a few data points just to round out the discussion from that report as well to share with you. So, like I said, I wanted to begin with this white paper that we just brought out a few weeks ago that is the fourth report that we've published in a series of studies that we've conducted with Siemens every 3 years on the greening of corporate America. It's really been fascinating since we've been doing it since 2006. We've really been able to chart the movement of sustainability amongst the largest companies in the U.S. And this particular report features a study that had 150 respondents from corporate America. And again, these are very large companies. You had to have a minimum of $250 million to participate in the study. And over half actually had annual revenues of over $1 billion. In addition to that, it is largely responded to by very senior people. 60% of our respondents were C-level executives. And one of the key elements of this whole series of reports is in the very first one, we created the 5 stages of corporate sustainability. And companies, the people who are from the companies who are filling out the surveys are invited to place themselves along this continuum. It is a self-evaluation of exactly how sustainable they are. So stage 1 and stage 2, as you can see, are pretty low. You know, sustainability is still viewed as a cost, or you're just complying with regulations. Stage 3, you're proactively applying sustainability because you consider it to be consistent with your profit mission. Stage 4 is when you're actually integrating sustainability with key strategies. We really consider stage 4 the level at which a company is really truly green. And then stage 5 is those very, very green companies where sustainability has been a transformational driver that improves the well-being of the company, society, and environment. And the key finding that's most important, I have a few others to share with you, but the one that's most important to our talk today is actually just really where people put themselves in the stages over time since we started doing this report in 2006. So as you can see, in 2006, with the blue bars, most people considered themselves stage 3 or earlier, and there was a pretty high percentage that felt they were in stage 2, or even 11% who felt they were just in stage 1, where it's really, they're just meeting the minimum requirements. By the time we get to 2012, that has really shifted to a pretty even bell curve. But in 2015, the pattern of shifting towards green, it becomes a little bit more nuanced. There's definitely still a shift toward green. If you look at the middle stages, stages 2, 3, and 4, and compare the light green bar with that darker maroon bar at the end, you can see that there's a definite shift toward companies becoming more green, with more companies in stage 4 than ever before, and a really significant growth in stage 4 too. And this really does reinforce the fact that sustainability is still a growing area in the United States. However, if you look at the ends of the chart, you see something kind of interesting going on. We see a tiny little kick up in stage 1 and a tiny little pitch down in stage 5. Now, these are not statistically significant differences, but they still suggest that perhaps sustainability in the United States is reaching middle age, that it's getting to the point, and also the fact that so many companies now are landing in stage 3 and stage 4, it suggests that sustainability to a certain degree for over 70% of companies is becoming common practice. And if you are a service provider, if you are a designer, if you're a contractor, if you're a building product manufacturer who wants to build your reputation and really distinguish yourself in sustainability, it suggests that perhaps just being able to identify yourself as green is not fully enough anymore. Now, why are all these companies committing to green? It's certainly because they're seeing strong benefits from that, and there's pretty much universal agreement, 90% of all the respondents. They expect to see a reduction in energy and operational costs from their company's adoption of sustainability practices. But when we look at this and we compare the green companies, those in stage 4 and stage 5, to those who are less green, those who are in stage 1 through stage 3, you can see that for certain benefits. These are the expected results from sustainability adoption, not the ones that they say they're necessarily achieving, but the ones they feel should be achieved from being more sustainable. And you can see that those who really truly are green also are much more likely to see that there is a competitive advantage to being green, and that being green helps you attract and retain customers and employees. And that point continues on when you look at really clearly specific financial benefits. You can see that those who are in the green side, as those who are 4 and 5, and rated themselves as 4 or 5, 81% believe that sustainable practices improve their company image and brand equity, and 61% believe that sustainability investments increase their company's financial performance. Compare that to just 29% of those who are non-green companies. With the financial performance. It's really a striking difference. This isn't about, okay, of course you're investing in green, you're getting more from green. It's about what's driving the investments in the first place. It's about the fact that if you don't, that if you believe these investments are there for you to achieve, you're far more likely to invest in them. And perhaps the most telling thing that really reveals the difference is amongst the C-suite respondents, just the CFOs, the CEOs, not those who are sustainability people who also responded to the survey. This is a sub-segment of the total respondents where we just looked at those in the C-suite. And we split them, and they split rather evenly in half, which was nice and convenient, between those who have a person or team dedicated to sustainability and those who do not have any resources dedicated to sustainability. And you can see that if you have those kind of resources reporting up to you, if you have that kind of internal intelligence in your company, then your leadership is far more likely to recognize the value of sustainability. They're far more likely to see that sustainability can lower operating costs, improve company image and brand equity, improve performance against sustainability benchmarks, and perhaps even the most tellingly, create a higher corporate value. So that's the findings from the report that we partnered on with Siemens. And again, what I really want to call out to your attention, though, is the idea that sustainability is now becoming much more common practice. So what is the next area where a company can really distinguish themselves and really be at the forefront of being green and sustainable? And right now, that area is very much surrounded. It is very much the idea of healthier buildings. I do want to take this moment, before I dive into discussing the survey, to thank our premier partners, Canada Green Building Council and Delos, not just for their financial support of the project, which is the only way it was able to happen, but also because they and some of our research partners like AIA and ASID really were very generous with reviewing and providing expertise on the study as we put it together. So we really had a very long study development process for this project, but I think you'll see that it yielded truly valuable data, and that is largely due to our partners. I also want to thank, again, the financial support of CBRE, Dewberry, and USGBC, and additionally Armstrong and Regen, who were very important partners for us as well. So this study was conducted in February and March of this year. We had nearly 1,000 respondents globally, but the majority of the respondents came from the United States and Canada. And my particular talk and the Smart Market Report in general is focused on the U.S. respondents. The Canada Green Building Council has their own report, which you can access on their site, which looks at the Canada market, which is a little bit different, and especially the way Canadian owners view some of these issues around healthier buildings. You'll see some important differences with the U.S. So if you have a chance, I do strongly encourage you to go to Canada Green Building Council's website and take a look at some of their findings as well. And so we're going to look at several different issues. We're going to look at, well, how exactly does the study define what is health, and therefore what is a healthier building? We're going to look at why owners care about healthier buildings, what will drive the industry to focus on healthier buildings, what healthier building practices are in use now and in the future, and how do architects, interior designers, and contractors learn about healthier building practices and products. So that's sort of our quick agenda. So to begin, we wanted to make sure one of the things that really advanced this study over the last study, when we did the study in 2014, this focus on health was still pretty early, and to a certain degree, it was much more focused on the idea of eliminating things that can cause harm in a building. And that is certainly quite important. But for this study, we wanted to take things a step further. So we made sure that all of the participants understood that our definition of health was the one used and developed by the World Health Organization, because we didn't need to reinvent something. They had a nice, short, but very straightforward definition of what health is, which is a complete state of physical, mental, and social health and well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. And how does that apply to buildings? That means that a truly healthier building is not just one that isn't going to make you sick, but one that perhaps can help enhance your state of health and well-being. And we wanted to find out, after we set that up, exactly how much of a priority health is in the design and construction industry. So we asked all of our respondents to rate it on a scale of 1 to 5. But we didn't ask them just to rate occupant health and well-being. We had them rate 7 individual factors that might be influencing their design and construction decisions. So 1 or a 2 is something that has a very low influence on design and construction decisions. A 4 or 5 is something that is pretty influential. The percentages you see in the chart in front of you are those who selected the 4 or the 5 for each of these categories. So first, as it leaps out at you in red script, I do want to point out that 2/3 of owners consider occupant and health and well-being highly influential on their design and construction decisions. 3/4 nearly of architects do, and interior designers, it's over 80%. So we can see that for those 3 groups at least, there's a pretty high emphasis in the industry. Contractors are so far lagging in their engagement in this particular factor. And right now, only about half of them consider it highly influential when they're making their construction decisions. So that's really great news. It's great news that so many in the industry of the decision makers are really putting a great priority on health. On the other hand, when it has to compete on a project with other priorities, the situation slightly changes. Because for owners, while 2/3 do think it's important, it still ranks 5th overall out of 7 in terms of the most influential factors that influence design and construction decisions. And you can see that the gap between the top couple and this one is pretty large. So when we're looking at issues around cost savings, in particular with owners, right now health and well-being is not ranking as high. And it's even a pretty decent gap between aesthetics and building energy performance and occupant health and well-being for owners. So it's sort of a good news, bad news situation. The good news is that there's a lot who consider it important. The bad news is there's a lot of things right now that are taking higher priority. If you compare that with the responses of the architects, on the one hand, it does rank 4th. So in some ways, it seems very comparable. However, you can see there's only a 10-point gap between those who value design and construction cost savings, the top influential factor, and occupant health and well-being. So it's a much more competitive priority for architects than it is for owners currently. With interior designers, it ranks 2nd. And with contractors, again, it ranks 4th, but with an enormous 30-point gap between the top factor in this. So you can get a sense of the influence that it has with each player. Okay, but we did determine that for 2/3 of owners, they do consider it highly influential. So why do owners care about healthier buildings? And what are they most interested in when they are thinking about healthier buildings? Well, we've actually seen a really interesting study emerge in the last year that has gotten a lot of play. So I think many people who are on this call may already be familiar with this. But I have to say this is certainly going a long way towards really underscoring what a lot of owners have already believed that they might be getting by investing in healthier buildings. This study, conducted by the Harvard School of Public Health as the main factor, but with Syracuse University and several other institutions were also involved. This study looked at a very controlled environment where they were able to change levels of VOCs, they were able to change the ventilation rates, and they were able to change the rates of carbon dioxide in the space, and compare the productivity that was going on in the spaces with these altered states to a standard office space. And when they did that, they found massive improvements in information storage and strategic thinking. So people are able to remember things better, and they're able to use that memory to strategize better. They're able to respond to crisis better. They're able to focus better, and they're able to have a wider breadth of approach. Now, I have to say, when I see these results, I wish I knew that my offices fit this category, because it would be very helpful for me to be able to retain information better, think strategically, focus better, but increase the breadth of my interest. That's an amazing combination. So our study asked owners, what are the top goals that you want to achieve when you invest in healthier buildings? And one of the things that was surprising is that productivity, while very important to owners, again, almost 2/3 consider it one of their top goals, is not in fact the top goal. In fact, in addition to happier and healthier building occupants, improved tenant and employee satisfaction with the building, in fact, was a much more frequently cited top goal by the owners than the financial benefits due to greater occupant productivity. Now, this may have as much to do with the challenges of measuring occupant productivity as anything else, but it does suggest that there could be a lot of data out there to actually support owners' efforts to create healthier buildings. And in fact, our study supports that supposition. We asked owners if they were actually measuring employee satisfaction and engagement. And then, in that category of those that were, we asked them, well, do you see any level of improvement that results from your investment in healthier buildings in employee satisfaction and engagement? Now, about 1/4 still aren't sure. Even though they're measuring employee satisfaction and engagement, they can't relate it back to whether or not healthier buildings is improving that factor. But among those who can, you can see overwhelmingly that they see an improvement. Only 5% of the total see no measurable impact. And the majority of those who responded to this question see a medium or high level of impact, and those at a high level is equal to those at a medium level. So you can see that this is one factor which owners really can track and really are achieving. So it's a very, very promising finding in terms of making that business case. And how does it relate to the business case? I mean, it's great to have happier and healthier employees who are more satisfied. But one of the key ways it appears to relate to the business case, at least if you're in the commercial real estate sector, is that it appears that it may have a positive impact on your ability to lease buildings more quickly. Now, I want to take a step back on this slide and point out that, of course, the most dominant wedge of all three of these pies is the blue wedge, that the market is still determining the financial impact of healthier buildings. They truly don't know if healthier buildings lease more quickly, if they have a higher asset value, or even whether they can charge a higher premium rent yet. And a lot of this uncertainty probably has to do with the fact that even for those who are measuring these factors, they may not have yet differentiated their healthier building investments from their overall sustainable building investments. Health may have been incorporated in their sustainability approach. So, they may not be certain if you just isolate health if that is having an impact. So that is the key finding here, that the industry needs more data on this, and hopefully as time goes on and this greater emphasis is placed on healthier buildings, they'll be able to gather it. But I do want you now just to look at the yellow and orange and dark colored wedges. And there's only one with even a tiny dark colored wedge. And you can see that the yellow, the positive impact, out of those who actually know, the yellow is a pretty big share of those who say that, yes, I see a positive impact on leasing buildings more quickly. If I know the impact at all, then I really do think I'm seeing a positive impact on that. And you see a pretty substantial share of the impact on asset value, too, of those who see healthier buildings having a positive impact on that. The only area where no impact is actually greater than a positive impact is charging premium rent. And that actually came out, in addition to doing the quantitative study that I've already described to you, we did do a qualitative study with a small group, 13 owners, who are really leading the industry in terms of their sustainable and healthier building investments. And they actually, talking with them a little bit more, did reinforce this point about the ability to charge a premium rent. Most of them felt like they could market health as an amenity, which would allow them to lease buildings more quickly, keep tenants longer, very, very valuable things to them that really matter. But a lot felt that the premium rent was not really achievable. However, one of them said, if we can lease our space faster and at higher rents, and that is because we are differentiating ourselves in the market, then it is worth every penny and a great deal more. And I really want to point out that phrase, because we are differentiating ourselves in the market. Right now, a lot of these owners are viewing having a healthier building as a true opportunity, the way that green was back in 2006, 2007, 2008. If you had a LEED building, you could say, well, look, we're one of the first in the state, one of the first in our city. And, we're really seeing a similar pattern in terms of owners' attitudes towards health. So we've established that owners are interested in health. We've established that they do achieve some benefits. But what are they specifically interested in? We'll look at what's actually being done in buildings. But this question just asks people to pick, what healthier building features are you interested in? And then architects, contractors, and interior designers were asked, what healthy building features do you think your clients are interested in? And it turns out that for the most part, architects, interior designers, and contractors significantly underestimate owner interest in several areas. And I've highlighted three of the top ones. Many owners, 61%, are interested in enhanced ventilation. There's also a relatively high level of interest in layout encouraging physical activity, and a high level of interest in transparency of product information. So owners are most interested in ventilation, and you can understand that from the findings in the productivity, and I think it's just intuitive for a lot of people that if you give people more fresh air, they'll perform better. But this layout encouraging physical activity is a relatively new feature and is very interesting. So what will drive the industry? So we've established that what a healthier building is, why owners care about healthier buildings, and what they're really interested in. What will drive the industry to focus on healthier buildings is the next thing that we're looking at. So we asked people that. We asked, okay, what are the top three drivers that would increase consideration of health on your projects? And while you can see the top findings here, they are very interestingly different based on the player who is responding to the question. The number one for owners is owners want more research on design and construction approaches that can positively impact health. They need research supporting their business case. The number one for architects and interior designers is greater public awareness of the health impacts of buildings. And from that, I think it's relatively easy to infer what they're hoping for is more consumer demand, which will lead to more owner demand. Higher awareness will make people see the value of these investments better. And for contractors, it's government incentives. Again, contractors are less engaged in this issue, but I think it's also important to recognize that contractors really do in some ways bear the brunt of cost. And, anything that would help them improve the bottom line of making these investments would be valuable. So we can see that the three things that are needed is more research, greater public awareness in general, and more government incentives to help drive things along. And fortunately, in addition to interviewing design and construction professionals and building owners, we also conducted a separate survey with public health professionals in the United States. And we really wanted to find out what kind of partners they would be in this effort. And the data really makes a compelling case that these are going to be great partners in the future if the industry is seeking to really engage more in healthier buildings. First of all, they reported that 98% of the institutions that they work for are conducting, 98% of them reported that their institutions are conducting research on the health impacts of buildings. So this is an active area that is being studied and looked at right now in the public health sector. In addition to that, 65% say that they see government policies in place that require companies to avoid using hazardous materials in buildings. So there's that. But more interestingly, 47% see government policies being considered for incentives for design that encourages physical activities, which again is one of the areas that the owners are most interested in as well. Now, what's interesting is, while there was a bit of variety and a relatively close group of drivers that can help encourage health, it's pretty clear that right now budget concerns and limitations is the big challenge. And there was pretty much general agreement from all of the players who responded to the survey that this was the most significant challenge. However, the unclear business case and the need to prioritize other items like energy efficiency are also influential and will need to be addressed. But budget concerns and limitations does appear to be one of the biggest. So we were very pleased to be able to feature a case study that could directly respond to that obstacle. An apartment building in Minneapolis, Minnesota called The Rose was looking to put in over 50% of their units as affordable. And they needed to, in order to do that, they needed to keep their construction costs down. But they really wanted, to the best degree possible, to make the building a regenerative building. And they looked to the Living Building Challenge to help them do that. I hope most people on the phone are familiar with the Living Building Challenge, but it has various petals that you need to achieve instead of categories. And it really is a much, much more aggressive standard for trying to achieve a building that doesn't just perform better than the average, but actually performs in a way that helps the environment, that helps the health of its occupants. And for them, they wanted to emphasize a few key things like the impact on the health of their occupants and see what they could achieve within a construction cost of $154 per square foot, so that they could have at least half of the units be affordable. And you can see that even though they use strategies like a dedicated outdoor air system, a DOAS, which does have a bit of an energy penalty, they were still able to achieve a 72% reduction off of the typical baseline energy use intensity for a building like this. Bringing it from 111 down to 31 kBTU per square foot per year. It's a really striking example of how this competition between energy efficiency and health is not necessarily one that needs to really drive a decision, a choice in design. They were able to achieve daylighting in 50% of their spaces and views to the outdoors in 64%, and in materials in particular, with a less than a 1% addition to total construction costs, they were able to emphasize the health, the durability, and the maintainability of their materials. They used a bio-based tile, for example, that eliminated 11.2 tons of toxins from the building. And the VOC levels were at 20 to 30 micrograms per cubic meter in apartments before move-in. Now, the maximum figure is 500, so you can see that's a whole different scale of VOC levels. Very, very tiny. And, one of the ways they were able to do this, to achieve this kind of material of response, is that they actually required contractors, when they were going to make substitutions, to defend that the substitutions were going to fulfill the same material requirements. This was included in the specifications for the contractors. They found not only did they get a lot less substitutions, but where they had substitutions, they actually landed up getting documentation on things that even the design team didn't have documentation on in terms of their health impacts. It was an incredibly productive process that really helped them keep the cost of the material down without sacrificing the positive impact that they wanted to have. Okay, so addressing those issues will help drive the industry to focus on healthier buildings. So the next question we want to tackle is, what healthier building practices are in use now? What's going on, and what do we expect to see in the future? So not surprisingly, the most widely adopted healthier building feature is better lighting and daylighting exposure. Not only is this required by most green building standards, including LEED, and therefore widely adopted, but it's also generally recognized as making a space more appealing. So it isn't surprising that we see pretty wide adoption of this particular feature. We also see pretty wide adoption, though, of products that enhance their thermal comfort and spaces that enhance social interaction. And at least half are actually employing enhanced air quality in their buildings, products that enhance acoustical comfort. They're excluding materials of concerns, occupant controls, and spaces that enhance tenant mood. And I do want to, before I move on, just make sure I'm very clear on what this means. The percentages listed in the dark blue bars are the percentage who say they use this on at least some of their projects. This is not the percentage of projects on which these are used. So this is just the people who are employing these at least some of the time. But it suggests great familiarity with these, great interest, and if you want to gauge interest, the other way to do it is we also asked what's most likely to be used in the next 5 years. And these percentages are just among those who are not currently using these particular strategies. And you can see that for the most part, the things that came out on top before are also, those who are not doing those things are expect to be doing them in the next 5 years. So enhanced air quality, spaces that enhance tenant mood, products that enhance acoustical comfort, these are going to become more and more common practices as time goes on. But what's really interesting is a pretty high percentage. Over half of those who are not using them now said that they are looking for opportunities for physical activity, which is good because it aligns with owner interest, as you recall, but also biophilic design principles. Now, we've been watching the interest in biophilia for many years, and it's always been sort of out there, a little bit on the sidelines. And this appears to be a real step towards this becoming a much more common practice. So we do think that's an exciting finding and could impact the way buildings are designed in the next few years. We looked at several sectors to see if there's a variation of use by sector. And for the most part, most of the common practices are used have a high level of use regardless of sector. And we certainly found that education, healthcare, and office are sectors in which healthier building practices are used relatively frequently. Other sectors like hotel and retail we found were less frequently used. So where did we see some differences? The education sector was much more likely to embrace natural ventilation, access to natural features, and site design, including sidewalks and bike trails. And this makes sense when you think about schools. The fact that many of them aren't open in the summer allows natural ventilation to be a better strategy. And it's nice that they recognize the importance of access to natural features and site design. It would be nice if they recognize these things are important for adults as well, but and not surprisingly, in the healthcare sector, use of art is the product and practice that's embraced more in that sector than any others. If you think about it, there's probably limitations to the degree to which they can actually provide occupants of a hospital with access to natural features. But art can be a way to bring nature into a building. So finally, in terms of this report, we want to look at how architects, interior designers, and contractors learn about healthier building products and practices. And one of the things that the study definitely demonstrated is that everyone, maybe contractors slightly less than most, but still a pretty high percentage of contractors, wants to know a lot about healthier buildings. I think this slide, more than any other, really demonstrates how early, in some ways, this focus on health is, how really what the industry is really striving to do right now is to find more information on this topic. And so for almost everyone, ways to measure health impacts is an enormously important issue that they feel like they want to know more about. They also want to know more about materials, including chemicals of concern and toxins, and just more basically transparency about building materials. Interestingly, and really going to that point of how early things are, they just want to know about health benefits too. I mean, just really core basic information. And again, corresponding to that owner interest, they want to see strategies that promote physical activity. So where are they getting their information from about healthier design and construction activities? I have a few of the top findings. We actually asked over, I believe, at least a dozen of different sources of information. I'm only going to present the findings for 4. And I want to explain exactly what this chart means. So the blue line indicates that this is just the percentage who said, yes, I get information from this source. The orange line takes that smaller group out of the whole, and that already said, yeah, I'm already getting information from there. And it indicates those who rank this as one of the top 2 most valuable places to get information for healthier building design and construction activities. So you can see that building product manufacturers are a pretty common source of information for everyone except owners. And even the owner percentage isn't that low. Owner percentages in general are lower for most of these categories. They're just not getting as much information right now, apparently, as other players. So, but you can see that except for contractors, among those who are using them, it is definitely well below half who would rank building product manufacturers just on their own as one of the top 2 sources of information, one of the top 2 most valuable sources of information. Training and workshops, on the other hand, are pretty widely used, less widely used than just getting information from building product manufacturers, probably just due to the ability to access them. But those who use them rank them pretty highly. You can see that, owners almost half, architects well above half, interior designers 3/4, contractors even to almost 60%. This really does emerge as really the area that's considered most valuable. So if you're a building product manufacturer and you're really trying to reach out to those interior designers, relying on your website alone to do it just isn't going to probably be as effective as really investing in these kind of training and workshop activities. Certification and standards, not very widely used by owners, but among owners who use it, pretty popular. More widely used by architects and pretty popular among them. Again, contractors, however, rate this pretty highly. And then finally, healthier product labels. You can see that owners are very rarely using them. But among those that do, nearly half consider this one of the top 2 most valuable sources of information. And it also ranks very highly among interior designers and pretty low in both use and value, according to contractors. And this issue was important enough that we did actually ask a separate question from all of those, where we just asked them to say what the influence is of the use when they see products, whether or not products have healthy product labels, on their decision to either specify or buy a building product. And as you can see, for architects and interior designers, especially if you combine the high and the medium together, a pretty high percentage consider healthy product labels pretty influential in their specification decisions. However, as you know, a lot of the decisions on which products actually make it into the building are made ultimately by the contractors. They are the ones who buy a lot of the products. And you can see that they do a very low percentage consider this a high influence on their buying purchases, and a pretty high percentage, nearly half, say it actually healthy product labels have a pretty low influence. So one of the real key takeaways here is that this is a community that the healthy product label people, that the manufacturers who are investing in this needs to engage with. The contractors need to be more aware of the importance of these healthy product labels. Again, going back to that Rose case study, where they actually were able to guarantee that contractors were paying attention to it. If we want our buildings to be truly healthier and not just designed with the intention of being healthier, this does need to be something that the industry embraces. So that is my last slide for the main report. But as I promised you, I did want to just share with you a few top findings from our Green and Healthier Homes report. As you can see, that study was conducted in the spring of last year. We had nearly 250 respondents. I'm not going to read through the definition of green building for you, but it's there for you to see. We've used that definition of green building since we started doing these these green homes reports. We've been doing these as well since 2006. So this is another one with a broad series of data. So one of the things that is just a clear evident finding that's consistent with previous studies is that there's still a big expectation among home builders and home remodelers that they are going to be increasing the level of green work that they do. You can see that especially if you look 5 years out, the percentage that both builders and remodelers expect to do is pretty high, or expect to be doing a high percentage of green. But what do they think the most influential criteria of their customers when they're purchasing a green home? Because, of course, what the customers are looking for is going to influence where they're making their investments. Not surprisingly, energy efficiency is the top factor. Not surprising at all. Durability and resilience also being very important. As a homeowner, I can speak to that being a big priority for me too. But it is interesting that third, and we had 5 or 6 items, is healthier indoor living environment. That is really something that home builders believe homeowners really value. And our previous study on healthier buildings suggests that that is accurate. And it's interesting that the older the home buyer is, the more they value it. The more they're aware of it and the more that they value it. That said, though, I would like to point out that it does rank second for those who are in that age group of 18 to 35, not third, the way it does for the other 2 groups. And this could be important in the long run. Right now, those who are 18 to 35, They often find, that their options are limited, especially if they're first-time home buyers trying to get that into the marketplace. There's a lot that have pretty, severe restrictions, can't buy new buildings, and sort of have to keep adapting things. However, as time goes on, if this continues to be the second highest priority, second only to energy efficiency to them, this is something that homeowners, home builders looking to the future really need to take seriously and consider. Not surprisingly, and this supports the findings of our 2014 study, those who do a lot of green building also are using a lot more healthy products and practices. Now, for things like no or low VOC products or MERV 8 filters, these are things that, that are actually called out in green building standards like LEED. So it isn't surprising that someone who does more green buildings is going to be using more of these products. They're just going to be more familiar with them. But I think that there's so many things here that are not necessarily called upon in LEED, that don't get any LEED points for those green builders, that it's very telling that even for those kind of categories, like a dedicated fresh air system, those who are doing a lot more green building are just more aware of, interested in, and engaged in making these buildings healthier. But one of the surprising findings, and single-family homes is the only sector where this is true. One of the most surprising findings that came out of the study is that there's a real concern in this industry about the higher first cost. It's the only area where that we've studied over the years where concerns about cost have actually grown rather than shrunk as green building has become more common. I also want to point out, even though it's not on the slide here, that about 2/3 roughly of contractors think that homeowners will actually pay more for green buildings. And some interviews that we did with recent homeowners suggest that 2/3 is probably about right, because while all of the homeowners we interviewed were very interested in energy efficient and green homes, most of them felt that that a new home should already be this. Most of them had the underlying assumption that if they were buying a new home, of course it would be energy efficient and healthier. So, I think that they're facing a challenge. They're facing skilled labor gaps, which can be particularly important in green building, and they're facing a market where there's already a built-in expectation to a certain degree of green, at least for new construction. All right. So remember, 2/3 thought that they would pay more for a green home. However, 83% of those same home builders believe that buyers will pay more for a healthy home. And nearly half of those home builders believe that the buyers will pay 5% or more. So you can see that there is an expectation and a compelling argument for the home building market to look at healthier homes. Now, they do have one big challenge. One of the things that definitely came out of our homeowner interviews, our recent home buyer interviews that we conducted, is that there was some skepticism about how builders could actually prove that the homes that they're building are healthier. But I think that's an education challenge. That's not an insurmountable challenge. That just has to do, again, with raising that public awareness about what really makes buildings healthier so that people know what to look for. All right, so a few final thoughts. Based on all three of these reports, for commercial real estate, health is becoming an increasingly important part of being sustainable. Right now, healthier buildings are an opportunity for designers, contractors, and BPMs to have a competitive advantage in green building. Owners find improved employee satisfaction and engagement the most valuable benefit of their healthier building investments so far. And I really do think that this is a striking finding in the study, because it does demonstrate that a case can be made that isn't the difficult hurdle that productivity has been so far, and demonstrating specific productivity benefits that can be directly applied to a business case. Training and workshops are considered the most valuable way to learn about healthier building design and construction activities. The influence of healthier product labels needs to move beyond architects and designers to owners and contractors in order to ensure that healthier products are used in buildings. And home builders expect a high level of interest in healthier homes from consumers.